shows like Homeland, Fosse Verdon, House of Cards, and many others. This was her first season as showrunner and executive producer of the morning show, Charlotte STOUDT. Hello and welcome to Contenders. Grab the mic right there. And right over there, she's going to wave at you. She's wearing the morning show merch.
Love it. Very nice.
I love it. A lot of fans of the morning show here. Woo! As you know, I'm obsessed with the show. We've talked before, and I can't wait to see what happens when it comes back. But man, you know how to keep us on the edge of our seats and wondering what's going to happen next. This is a show you walked into that had already had 2 seasons. Is that a difficult thing as a producer to come in, or is that a challenge you like?
I think it's kind of a gift, because to create characters that people love, that people will watch do kind of very flawed, messy, sometimes awful things, somebody already did that. So I just had to come in and think about how to torture them a little more. And I think the other thing that I love about this show is it really has the opportunity to speak to the moment, right? I mean, it is a show ultimately about truth, and we're sort of in this crazy time where truth is so contested and elusive and sort of pulled in every direction. So I think the tension between the sort of gloss and glamour and sexiness of the show and sort of the anxiety underneath, it kind of gives the show its special sauce.
And you're playing right off the headlines at any given time, which is always a dicey thing. I want to show them a clip though first before we talk more about where you take this show and how you approached it. But let's take a look at the morning show. This is Emmy winner Billy Crudup right here.
All right.
The power behind there. I love that last line. You listen to this whole thing, then good night, Mom. Yeah.
I am obsessed with Corey and his mother. We sort of were like, we saw, you're always like, why are these people the way they are, right? How do they get sucked into this crazy world? And it's not a show that likes backstory very much. It's always moving forward and moving quickly, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting to see what Mom had done to the inside of the brain. Yeah.
This is such an amazing ensemble cast that just keeps growing, and you're dropping these major stars in. Like this season, John Hamm came in, and whoa, when I say heated up the action here, I'm not kidding. Wow. Okay, so how was that?
Well, I think we had an initial meeting to talk about the characters, Jen, John, myself, and a couple of other people. And I remember they were sitting on a sofa together, and it was kind of the first time, they'd obviously met many times before, but that was the first time I was sort of looking at them like, oh, in a 2-shot, what's this gonna feel like? And I was like, wow, yes, the question will be what will keep them apart? Like, we're gonna have to give them a lot of obstacles.
Yes, with Jennifer Aniston, amazing. And in working with Jen and with Reese Witherspoon, who sort of, are the powers behind the power here. This was their baby to come to television weekly with this kind of a show. How are they to work with, and how closely do you collaborate on the direction of the show with them?
We work really, really closely. And when I say they really produce, they are full-on producers that can, casting, locations, thoughts on locations, storylines, sometimes dialogue tweaks, because, they're both mistresses of comedy, and, they know how to take out the one comma and the one the to make the line twice as funny. So I might get out of the way when they do that because they know best. But it's really great, and some things that ended up on screen are really a direct result of that collaboration. So it's fun. It's a great group of people, honestly.
Yeah, and I mentioned in the intro, you've really ratcheted this up. It's evident in all the nominations the show has been getting from all the major award shows for this season's show. And I didn't think it got its due early on, and I was a viewer from day one. I just was hooked on this thing. And now I think everyone's caught up with it and, you know, and are hanging on to it religiously, as they say. What do you think it is that, you know, that it just keeps growing?
I think it was slightly ahead of its time, right? Because the very, very first iteration of the show wasn't, I believe, Me Too, right? And then the Matt Lauer thing happened,
Right.
and so it was right on the zeitgeist moment, and I think it's kind of, because it's a news show and because it is about such messy, messy people, and we're in a time where like everybody's, it doesn't matter what side of the line you're on, like everyone's behavior is scrutinized and judged, and you know, social media is sort of our new jury and everything, that I think it's perfectly suited to sort of deal with like, where is the line? What is the right thing to do? And I like that they're like us, like we're always messing up. We want to do the right thing, but a lot of times we don't. And I think they're so lovable that you can let them fail and you can also relate to it.
Yeah, and the power dynamic between men and women is
Yes.
one of the things that I think is fascinating about this show, and it keeps going with different characters. But you're really seeing women in a position that we don't often see them in television shows like this.
That's true, and I think, not to spoil anything, but that question of like, who's gonna run this place in the end, you know, and the question of, can the women do it better? It's like a real question. Well, let's see.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's what you think, yeah.
It may not be, you know, I think you can beat Fred Nickel, and that's not too hard.
Yeah.
Do a great job.
I wrote down some of the things that it dealt with. These are some of the themes that it dealt with this season. Me Too, Roe versus Wade, January 6th, Elon Musk and space travel, racism, corporate intrigue, journalistic ethics. Oh my God, there's everything this show touches on. I'm wondering if that's dangerous too, because by the time you finish filming it, the world seems to be moving so fast that it might be ahead of you. Do you worry about that, and how do you keep that in your head as a writer?
I absolutely, I mean, you're always, like I say, you're worried that the zeitgeist bus is you're gonna miss it, you know, you're gonna chase after it going, ah. I think the funny thing is, this was back in fall 2021. That's when I first came on. So I was really worried, like, is anyone gonna think about Jan 6th in a year? I thought, oh, everyone's gonna move past it. People will be, and so I was a little worried about that storyline, and then, yeah, I was wrong. Very wrong.
And there you go, because you never know what's going to happen. Like, I remember Murphy Brown. You know, Murphy Brown was very much talking about Dan Quayle all the time and things like that. And now if you watch Murphy Brown, which was just a brilliant show of its time, but now if you watch it, a lot of viewers are going, who's Dan Quayle? What's that about?
You know, the funny thing, like, for anyone who's old enough to remember who Dan Quayle is, like, we were just like, oh, he can't spell potato. He ended up doing really, really well. You know, he had an investment firm. That guy's like in clover. He survived.
Exactly. I mentioned all those shows you've been involved in, Homeland, Fosse Verdon, which was just out of this world too, A House of Cards, on and on in your career. How long do you like to stay with series and that it's fresh for you as a showrunner to keep going? So this was your first season. Do you like it enough? Do you want to stay with it a few seasons?
I think you really do become invested in the characters, and they're real. Like even shows that I previously worked on, I will wake up and think about them, like what are they doing? I mean, I think that happens to a lot of actors and writers. You sort of they do become so real to you. I think as long as the world is, you know, a shit show, there will be a place for the morning show. And look, there's no sign that we've learned anything. So I think we might be okay. Sadly.
I think so too. This is Apple. At Apple, this was their first, I think, really big, you know,